حوار مع كبار، ويسعدني في هذه الحلقة أن أستضيف سعادة السفير الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية في عمان السيد ستيوارد جونز، ذو الخبرات الطويلة والمتعددة في أكثر من عاصمة عربية. لقد عمل في القاهرة في سنوات مبكرة 2005، وعمل في بغداد نائبا للسفير، كما في القاهرة نائبا للسفير، وكان متخصصا للحكومة العراقية في مجلس الأمن القومي، إذ أنه كان مسؤولا عن الأنبار في مجلس الأمن القومي. ثم زار أكثر من بلد في أمريكا اللاتينية، زار تركيا وتابع أمورا فيها، كما زار كولومبيا، وأيضا كان في السلفادور. والسيد ستيوارد بالإضافة إلى ذلك كان في الأمم المتحدة ممثلا للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية نائبا للسفيرة مارلين أولبرايت، وهو خريج جامعة ديوك ومتخصص في الحقوق من جامعة بنسلفانيا. أرحب فيك سعادة السفير.
Thank you, Sultan. Thanks for having me today. It's really an honor to be with you.
أهلا فيك. وهذه الخبرات الطويلة والمتعددة والمتخصصة في منطقة الشرق الأوسط أردنا أن نستفيد منها بمناسبة زيارة الرئيس الأمريكي أوباما الهامة جدا للمملكة الأردنية الهاشمية، إذ أنه خصها بالإضافة إلى زيارة لإسرائيل وفلسطين، وخص الأردن بهذه الزيارة التي استغرقت يومين، وكان ذلك في 22 من شهر مارس الماضي. سعادة السفير، أريدك أن تقيم هذه الزيارة، كيف تقرأ زيارة الرئيس أوباما وتضع لها العناوين الأساسية من أجل أن يعرف المشاهد الأردني والعربي أيضا أهمية هذه الزيارة، وأن تعطى القيمة الحقيقية لها كما كانت في الواقع.
Well, thank you, Sultan, again for having me today. It's great to be here. And thanks for the opportunity to talk about President Obama's visit to Jordan earlier this month. It was a very important visit. It was a significant visit. The President and the White House team regard it as a very successful visit. It was the first visit that the President made outside of America in his second administration. It's the first visit to Jordan since 2006, so the first visit in 7 years. So it was a very important and historic visit. I think the visit achieved a lot. As you know, the President went to Israel first, and then the West Bank, and then he came to Jordan. And after making a historic speech about the relations between the Israelis and the Palestinians in Jerusalem, he came to Jordan, and here he reaffirmed the United States' strong support for His Majesty King Abdullah and for Jordan.
سيدي، إلى أي مدى يعني ساهمت هذه الزيارة للضفة الغربية وإسرائيل والأردن في إعادة بناء صورة الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية في المنطقة؟ أنت تعلم أن الرئيس أوباما كان في بداية ولايته الأولى قد زار اسطنبول والقاهرة وتحدث، ومنذ ذلك الحين أعيد رسم صورة إيجابية للسياسة الأمريكية في المنطقة، لكن ذلك يكاد أن يختفي فيما بعد نتاج لتراجع هذه السياسة. هل ساهمت هذه الزيارة الأخيرة في إعادة رسم الصورة إيجابيا، وإلى أي مدى؟
Well, thanks for the question, Sultan. As you know, the United States and Jordan share the same vision for peace between Israel and Palestine. We both share the two-state solution vision, and we want to work together towards that objective. So when the President was in Jerusalem, he made a very strong speech. He reached out to the people of Israel, and he made the argument for why it's in Israel's interest and in the Palestinian people's interest to work towards peace. And as he said in his press conference here, and as Secretary Kerry has said since then, is that we see a lot of opportunities for steps that both sides could take to improve confidence and trust between them and move towards a negotiation process. So we hope this will happen.
الآن في مرحلة الربيع العربي أو أثنائه أو من بعده أصبحت الدول العربية أكثر علاقة على مستوى حتى الرسمي مع الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، رغم أنها دخلت إلى الربيع العربي، بمعنى أن الدول الراديكالية الآن بدأت تبني علاقات جديدة، ليبيا حتى مصر، الدول التي وقع فيها الربيع العربي. هل أنت متفائل في أن يغيب العداء للولايات المتحدة في النظام العربي؟
Well, I don't think, I think that, obviously in the Arab world we're seeing a period of change and also a period of uncertainty. And what the United States has said is that we are willing to work with any country that's willing to work with us. We'll continue our assistance programs, we'll continue to collaborate, but of course, the countries have to want to work with us as well, and what we're seeing is that they indeed do want to work with us. We're continuing our partnerships around the region, and we think that there's a great opportunity for progress and growth in the coming years. It's not easy, it's difficult, change is always hard, and these are states that have not had any change for a long time, so there's a need now for rapid change. But the United States wants to work with the region. We see it as a strategic partner. We see it as a place where we need to work with our partners, and we're going to continue to try to do that. Of course, Jordan is a very important partner for the United States in this region. We regard, as President Obama said in his remarks in his press conference with His Majesty, we see Jordan as a very important partner, and we want to continue that partnership in all areas, in security, in economic partnership, trade partnership, assistance. We want to continue to work very closely with Jordan.
في زيارته الأخيرة الرئيس أوباما حين التقى مع جلالة الملك ثم عقد مؤتمرا صحفيا وتحدث في قضايا عميقة وواسعة وبتفاصيل، أحيانا قال إنه ملتزم بأمن واستقرار الأردن. ما المقصود بهذا الالتزام وإلى أي مدى هذا الالتزام؟ ما هي حدوده لو تكرمت؟
Well, the United States and Jordan enjoy a very close security partnership. It's a partnership that has saved lives in the United States, and it has saved lives of Americans outside of the United States, and it has saved lives here in Jordan. So that's a partnership that we value very much, and that of course we want to continue, and we are going to continue to invest in. What the President said when he was here is that we are going to stand by Jordan through the challenges that it faces. Jordan is facing some important regional challenges. We know this.
ما هي هذه التحديات لو سمحت؟ مثلا ممكن أن تذكر بعض هذه التحديات التي يواجهها الأردن من منظور أمريكي؟
Well, as you know, again, in the same press conference, His Majesty spoke about the challenge of the Syrian refugees. And His Excellency, the Prime Minister, in his presentation yesterday to the Parliament, also talked about the enormous challenge of trying to address the humanitarian crisis both in Syria and now facing those refugees here who are living here in Jordan. The United States is playing an important role in the humanitarian response. As you probably know, Sultan, the United States is the #1 single donor to humanitarian assistance, not only in Jordan but throughout the region. We've given more than $385 million to humanitarian organizations in the region, and we've given more than $320 million, or we soon will have given more than $320 million with the inclusion of the recent commitment of $200 million directly to Jordan to help Jordan address the challenge it faces from the refugees here in Jordan. But let me say this too, we recognize that this is not enough. We think that the United States needs to do more. Many other countries are also doing an enormous amount. The European Union is very active in the humanitarian response. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, everybody's doing a lot. But I think all of us agree we need to do more. And one of the things that the President told the King during his meeting, which I was honored to be part of, is that we will continue to look for things that we can do to help Jordan address the problem of the Syrian refugees. We know this is on people's minds. We know this is a big concern.
سيدي سعادة السفير، يعني أنتم تتابعون برنامج الإصلاح في الأردن، وبالتأكيد أنت يعني كمتخصص في قضايا الشرق أوسط، عملت في القاهرة، عملت في بغداد، عملت في الأمم المتحدة، أيضا زرت تركيا. ما هي ملاحظاتك على برنامج الإصلاح الأردني؟ يعني هل هذا البرنامج يعني يثير اهتمام الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية؟ هل يذهب إلى الأمام بالصورة المرضي عنها على المستوى الدولي؟ سيما أن الأردن شريك لكثير من دول العالم وحريص على أن يؤدي برنامج الإصلاح. ما هي ملاحظاتكم من وجهة نظر أمريكية على هذا البرنامج؟
Thanks, Sultan. Yes. You know, the United States supports the reform process here in Jordan, but the most important thing is what the Jordanian people think. And I think the Jordanian people will be the ultimate judge of the success of the reform program. Yeah. That said, about a year ago, last February, in February 2012, His Majesty King Abdullah visited Washington, D.C. He met with President Obama, and he shared the Jordanian roadmap for reform. And we all know what the elements of that roadmap were. It was national dialogue, constitutional reform, implementing legislation, and culminating in elections in January. And now we've seen those elections. We've seen the innovations that have come out of the constitutional reforms. When I talk about the reforms, one of the things that I think has made a very big impact is the Independent Electoral Commission. And let me take this opportunity to commend His Excellency, the Chief Commissioner of the IEC, Abdullah Al-Khatib. You know, what he achieved in establishing that commission and bringing it along and being able to manage the elections in January was an extraordinary achievement by any international standards. You talked about my experience in Iraq before. I was working on the elections in Iraq in 2005, and I know how difficult it was to set up an independent electoral commission. But Abdullah set it up in less time and brought about these elections in a very positive way. As you know also, the international observers who observed the elections said that it represented genuine progress in credibility and transparency. They said that that it represented an improvement from previous elections. Of course, they also recognized areas for improvement, and those are also reflected in the Independent Electoral Commission's own report. But so when President Obama was here and at his press conference, he commended the IEC and he recognized the success of the Jordanian elections. And there are several other examples, the establishment of the Constitutional Court, the constitutional amendments. So yes, I think we're very impressed by the progress of reform that has seen so far. Of course, now it's time for the next phase of reforms. This is what His Majesty has told us, and this is what he's laid out in his 3 letters to the Parliament and to the public. And I think his goal of fostering political parties, fostering civil society, and encouraging the principles of consultation and debate and consensus, I think these are really very valuable and important reforms. But I have to come back to my first point, which is it doesn't make so much difference what we think. What really counts is what the Jordanian people think.
نعم. سيدي سعادة السفير، يعني أريد أن أنتقل قليلا إلى قضية ساخنة وخطرة تهم الإقليم وتهم المجتمع الدولي، قضية اللاجئين السوريين. أنت تعرف كم يعاني الأردن. رئيس وزرائنا الدكتور عبد الله نصور قال إن شمال الأردن أو المملكة بلد منكوب باللاجئين. في 24 ساعة الأخيرة عبر إلى الحدود حوالي 3000 شخص بين طفل وامرأة وكبيرة في السن ومصاب ومريض. هذا العبء الكبير، هل المجتمع الدولي وعلى رأسه الولايات المتحدة يعملون بسوية تتناسب مع هذه الكارثة، أم أن لك ملاحظات على ذلك؟ كيف ترى الولايات المتحدة وأنت سفيرها إمكانية يعني السيطرة أو احتواء هذه المسألة؟
Well, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think this is a tremendous problem. It's a tremendous challenge for Jordan, but it's also a tremendous challenge for the international community. We recognize our obligation. I've been to Zatri now probably 15 or 20 times. I've seen the progress of that camp. You know, I have so much respect for the UN workers and for the Jordanian workers who have brought that camp from really a sand pit back in July to a place now which has caravans and it has shops and it has places to go. There's still a lot of work and a lot of problems in Zatri, of course, but this is a place that needs our attention. as you know, only a fifth maybe of the refugees in Jordan live in the camp. I mean, 4/5 live outside the camp, and they need our assistance and support too. One of the things that President Obama said in his press conference with the King was that the United States has enormous respect and gratitude for the people of Jordan for their generosity and compassion to this refugee population. And that's why the United States is the single largest donor to the humanitarian response. That's why we've given $385 million to UN organizations in the region, and that's why we've given more than $320 million directly to Jordan to respond to the refugee crisis. But as I said earlier, Sultan, we recognize that this is not enough. Our support has to continue. We need to do much more, and we need to work more effectively with the other donors to make sure that the Jordanians are not the only ones who are carrying the burden of this problem.
مشاهدينا الكرام، نذهب إلى فاصل ونعود، وسأسأل سعادة السفير عن القضية السورية، عن الموقف السوري. كيف تنظر الولايات المتحدة إلى السياسة الأردنية إزاء ما يجري في سوريا؟ كيف تقيم هذه السياسة؟
The United States has called on Bashar al-Assad to end the violence, step down, and allow for a political transition in Syria. When you have a vacuum of power, or when you have chaos, this becomes a breeding ground for terrorism. I want to hear what they think. I want to hear what they think of America. And I want to also have the opportunity to explain U.S. policy. The United States is willing to work with any party or any government that respects democracy, respects human rights, respects women's rights, and respects the democratic process.
أرحب بك مرة أخرى سعادة السفير. كان سؤالي قبل الفاصل: كيف تنظر الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية إلى السياسة الرسمية الأردنية إزاء الحالة السورية؟ وأنت تعلم أن الأردن كان قد بذل جهودا بالاتصالات في بداية الأزمة مع الرئيس الأسد، أرسل الملك رئيس ديوانه، ولكن هذه الاتصالات انقطعت ولم تعد قائمة، والوضع خطير جدا ومتوتر. الولايات المتحدة لا شك بحكم مسؤوليتها الدولية لها رؤية لهذا. كيف تنظر إلى السياسة الأردنية إزاء الموقف من سوريا؟
Well, Sultan, for over a year, the United States has called on Bashar al-Assad to end the violence, step down, and allow for a political transition in Syria. We are, like the people of Jordan, the people of the United States are horrified by the violence, the killing, the terrible human rights violations that are going on inside of Syria. And of course, as we said earlier, we're very concerned about the humanitarian crisis that is spilling out from Syria, not only into Jordan, but into Lebanon and into southern Turkey. And by the way, we should also talk about the millions of people who are displaced within Syria and who are looking for refuge within Syria or may have to leave Syria to find refuge outside of Syria. So the United States has been very active. We have taken measures to support the Syrian opposition coalition.
اسمح لي سعادة السفير، هل الموقف الأمريكي من الحالة السورية يعني واضح بما يكفي يعني هل هناك قرارات واضحة؟ يعني المراقبون يعتقدون أن الموقف الأمريكي ليس مقروءا بشكل جيد، يعني أنتم لم تتدخلوا في الشأن السوري مباشرة، لم تقولوا بتسليح المعارضة، لم تستطيعوا أن توقفوا حمام الدم الذي يمارس على الأرض السورية من أطراف عديدة، وبالتالي يعني هل سيبقى الموقف الأمريكي على هذا المستوى؟
Well, I think that the United States position is aimed at ending the bloodshed in Syria, and the United States wants to contribute to the end of the bloodshed in Syria. Now, it's not clear to me, and as the President said during his visit, it's not clear to him that ending the bloodshed will be advanced by bringing in a U.S. military intervention. So what the United States needs to do is we need to figure out how we can provide the best possible assistance to try to put an end to the bloodshed. So what are we doing? One is we're supporting the Syrian opposition coalition. We're trying to help the coalition come together at a political level so that they will be capable of creating a political transition when the opportunity arises. The United States is also providing non-lethal assistance to the opposition elements inside Syria. We're providing food, but we're also providing medical equipment and medical supplies. We're providing meals that can be quickly deployed, and we're also providing humanitarian assistance
هل
inside
تخشون
Syria.
أن تذهب سوريا باتجاه الصوملة، التمزق، الاقتتال الطائفي، أو يعني قيام حرب أهلية، وانعكاسات ذلك خطرة على الأمن الإقليمي كله وبالتالي على الأمن الأمريكي؟ هل تخشون أن تذهب سوريا في هذا الاتجاه؟
Yes, I think that's a very real concern for the United States and also for the neighboring states. As President Obama has talked about the problem of that when you have a vacuum of power or when you have chaos, this becomes a breeding ground for terrorism. And we are concerned about what this could mean for our partners in the region, Jordan, and also Turkey and Lebanon and Israel. So we need to find solutions to this, and we need to work with the region. The other thing the United States is working very hard to do is bring together the international coalition. We're consulting with Russia, we're consulting with China, we're consulting with Arab partners, including Jordan, we're consulting with European partners. We really need to find an international solution to this problem. And we need to find it, as you say, Sultan, very quickly, because it's a very urgent situation.
سعادة السفير، دعنا نتحدث عن عملية السلام. لولا زيارة الرئيس أوباما الأخيرة للمنطقة إسرائيل والضفة الغربية والأردن لازداد قول المراقبين أن عملية السلام قد غابت، أو أنها يعني وضعت في المؤخرة أو ليست في اهتمام الولايات المتحدة لولا هذه الزيارة الأخيرة. هل تعتقد أن هذه الزيارة وقدوم وزير الخارجية السيد كيري وربما يقوم بزيارات مكوكية، هل تعتقد أن هناك أمل في أن ينتظم العمل لجمع الفلسطينيين والإسرائيليين على الطاولة واحدة وأن يلعب الأردن دور في ذلك في اعتقادك؟
Jordan will have to play a role. We're counting on Jordan to play a role. Jordan is a full partner in our efforts to try to bring the Israelis and the Palestinians together. During his press conference with the king, I'm sorry to keep coming back to it, but it was an important day, the president said that he praised the king and Foreign Minister Judah for their leadership in trying to maintain dialogue between the parties over the last 14 months. So you can be assured that Foreign Minister Judah and Secretary Kerry are in very close contact. They're scheduled to meet again on Sunday to talk about progress. And we are counting on Jordan, if the parties will come together, if the parties will start to take some of the measures they need to take to build trust and confidence that could lead towards a negotiating process. I'm sure that Jordan is going to be a very important player. Jordan will play a very important role as the process moves forward.
حسب اطلاعك هل لديكم يعني برنامج أجندة معينة؟ لأن الرئيس جاء بلا أجندة معلنة، ويبدو أنكم حاولتم هذه المرة أن تتجنبوا الإعلام لأنه ربما يؤثر في حال إعلان أجندة أو خطة محددة. هل هناك شيء يعني قريب من تصور واضح غير كلمة البريس بروسيس دائما المستعملة أمريكيا، يعني هناك شيء واضح من أجل أن يتعاطى معه الفلسطينيون والإسرائيليون، سيما أن الفلسطينيون يعترضون على الاستيطان، الإسرائيليون مستمرون في الاستيطان، الأردن عمل مفاوضات استطلاعية جيدة قبل حوالي سنتين، ربما يعيدها وربما لا أعلم. هل لديكم تصور محدد تقولونه لهذه الأطراف؟
Well, it's a very fair question, Sultan, and I appreciate the question, but I don't have an answer for you, because I think what Secretary Kerry is doing is he's trying to create an atmosphere, he's trying to create an environment, and I think the answer to your question is just going to have to wait for a while.
يجب علينا طيب، الآن سأعود إلى الأردن والمساعدات الأمريكية المهمة للأردن، وهي طويلة، يعني كيف تقرأ، كيف تقدمها في استمراريتها التاريخية، والآن هي تقريبا أصبحت يعني أوضح. هناك 200 مليون وعد بهم الرئيس الأمريكي، 200 مليون دولار، هناك ضمانات القروض للأردن، أيضا هناك مساعدات مباشرة وغير مباشرة في نواحي اقتصادية واجتماعية ثقافية وتعليمية وصحية. كيف تصف باختصار المساعدات الأمريكية للأردن؟ وماذا تعولون على هذه المساعدات؟
Well, the United States is very proud of its partnership with Jordan. And as I talked about before, it's a security partnership. It's a close trade partnership. We have the free trade agreement. And of course, we have assistance programs here. And the United States has an agreement with Jordan to provide $360 million every year through 2014 in direct economic assistance. That's the direct bilateral program. That's not counting the security program, which is another $300 million. But as you said, during this visit, the President announced two new assistance initiatives. One, he announced $200 million in cash transfer to the government of Jordan directly in response to the Syrian refugee crisis. So when I said earlier that the United States is providing $320 million in direct assistance, last July we provided $100 million. At that time there were only 70,000 refugees and we provided $100 million. In February I announced a special program for $20 million focused on improving water delivery in northern Jordan, specifically aimed at trying to ameliorate the conditions not only for the Syrian refugees but also for the Jordanians who are living in northern Jordan and now feeling the pressure of this added population. And then on this visit, the President announced $200 million in direct cash transfer, again in direct response to Jordan's national appeal for assistance, which it issued in February. But the President announced another very important initiative, which is going to be even more valuable to Jordan over the long term. We recognize that Jordan has been under pressure from regional circumstances for some time. Of course, you have the Syrian crisis, which we've talked about, but we've also talked about the disruption in energy supplies because of the reduction in gas from Egypt to Jordan. And this has created an economic consequence. And Jordan has entered an agreement with the IMF, a standby agreement with the IMF, which anticipates that Jordan will have to go into the bond market and borrow money this year and possibly next year as well. So what we are doing with our loan guarantee program is, what we are saying is we will guarantee, the United States government will guarantee the loans of the bonds of the Jordanian government. That will reduce the interest rate that the government of Jordan has to pay for those bonds by more than half. So you would probably have to pay somewhere in the range of 5 to 6% interest on those bonds without the guarantee. With the guarantee, you'll pay a little bit more than 2%. So, and for a bond over 10 years, this will represent literally hundreds of millions of dollars in savings for the government of Jordan. So this is a request that the Jordanian government made to us. When we talked last year about how the United States could be more helpful, this was the response we got. They said, please help us with the loan guarantees. And this is what we've done. Right before the President's visit, they were approved by Congress, so the President was able to announce them. Jordan is one of only two countries where we have this program. So this shows the United States' strong commitment to stand by Jordan during this period.
سعادة السفير، هذا على المستوى الرسمي بين الحكومتين الأمريكية والأردنية. أريد أن أسألك على مستوى القطاع الخاص. أنتم تدعمون أيضا القطاع الخاص الأردني ببرامج ومشاريع وبدراسات عديدة. كيف تقيم هذا الدعم وفي أي المناحي تركزون مع القطاع الخاص؟
Well, you're right. Since I came here, one of the things that I've really tried to do is support the private sector in Jordan. And I especially want to promote trade between the United States and Jordan. You know, Jordan is one of only 5 countries in the world with a free trade agreement with the United States. Before the free trade agreement, trade between the United States and Jordan was only about $250 million. Now it's $2.8 billion, so it's multiplied by more than 10 times. We estimate that the free trade agreement between Jordan and the United States has created 50,000 jobs here in Jordan. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity to work with Jordanian firms and American firms, bring them together, increase trade. And what I tell American firms who are coming to Jordan, I say, come to Jordan, create a partnership with Jordanian firms. These are the firms that have expertise in trading with Iraq and in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. And you can use Jordan as a springboard to enter those very lucrative markets. So although Jordan is a small market, 7 million people, Jordan can be a springboard into the whole Arab market of 300 million people. And we see tremendous opportunities in the information and communications technology sector, in the tourism sector, in the health sector and health tourism. And these are all areas where we are talking to Jordanian firms and looking for ways to cooperate. I'm very proud that last October, my embassy hosted a trade delegation, a trade mission, I should say, from Amman to Silicon Valley. And we took 15 health technology firm representatives to Silicon Valley for a week. And out of that trip, we've gotten several deals, and we've gotten the commitment of a Silicon Valley incubator to come and have a residency here in Jordan. So I could go on and about this, but this is an area where we're very, very committed. You know, 27% of the USAID budget, 27% of the $360 million I talked about in the U.S. assistance goes to economic growth programs aimed at fostering the private sector and aimed at creating jobs in the private sector.
أريد أن أسألك سعادة السفير عن مؤسسات المجتمع المدني، المنظمات غير الحكومية، هل تتعاونون مع الشباب؟ هل هناك برامج ثقافية؟ هل تجرين اتصالات مع المعارضة الأردنية؟
The United States, our job as the U.S. Embassy is to have contacts with everybody who wants to have contacts with us. Of course, as long as they're committed to peace and stability and cooperation. So we're really open to talking to anybody. And I think it's really important for me as an ambassador to speak to as many Jordanians as possible so I can learn about this country.
هل زرت محافظات في المملكة؟ هل التقيت مع تجمعات شعبية؟ هل التقيت مع قيادات من المعارضة؟ ما هو انطباعك يعني؟
Yes, well, I've been to all the most of the major governors. I haven't been out to the Far East yet, but you know, I've been to Aqaba, I've been to Arbid, I've been to Tafila, I've been to Karak, and I've been to Mafraq, of course, several times because of the refugees. Every time I go out, I try to meet with members of civil society. I try to meet with youth groups. I want to hear what they think. I want to hear what they think of America. And I want to also have the opportunity to explain U.S. policy. I'm happy to meet with opposition people if they want to meet with me.
هل خطتك سالكة مع المعارضة وخاصة الإسلامية؟
Well, so far they have not been too interested in a meeting with U.S. government representatives. But if they want to meet with us, we're happy to see them.
طيب أريد أن أذهب إلى السؤال الأخير والمركزي والهام في هذه المقابلة، وهي زيارة جلالة الملك عبد الله الثاني إلى الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، وهي زيارة قادمة في قبل نهاية هذا الشهر، ربما في 20 من نيسان أبريل، ولقائه مع الرئيس الأمريكي ومع قيادات أمريكية عديدة. لماذا هذه الزيارة في اعتقادك؟ كيف تقرأها؟ ما الجديد فيها؟ والرئيس أوباما كان هنا قبل فترة، ما الجديد وما هي في اعتقادك القضايا التي سيحركها جلالة الملك في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية مع الرئيس؟
Well, you're right. I think it's really unprecedented for a foreign leader to come visit Washington so soon after the president has been here in the capital. But I think this shows the close partnership that Jordan and the United States enjoy, that just a few weeks after the president is here now, His Majesty will go to Washington in about 10 days. He'll meet with President Obama, he'll meet with the Vice President, he'll meet with senior administration officials, he'll meet with members of our Congress. And I think it's an important visit too, because although the president was here and he had a wonderful exchange with His Majesty, the visit to Washington will allow His Majesty to meet with several members of the new administration, and he'll also meet with several members of Congress. He'll be able to thank the members of Congress for their support, for their economic support for Jordan through the assistance programs. And I'm sure that he will be asked by them and by the members of the administration how he sees the crisis in Syria and what he thinks the United States should be doing to help address the situation, to reduce the bloodshed, and to alleviate the human suffering. So this is, I think, will be the focus of the visit. I'm looking forward to accompanying His Majesty. I think it's an important opportunity, again, for further exchange in the partnership.
We spent a significant amount of time consulting on Syria. I want to commend His Majesty for his leadership, and I want to commend the Jordanian people for their compassion during an extraordinarily difficult time for their neighbors. His Majesty was the first Arab leader to publicly call on Assad to step down because of the horrific violence that was being inflicted on the Syrian people. Jordan has played a leading role in trying to begin a political transition toward a new government. We're working together to strengthen a credible Syrian opposition. We share Jordan's concerns about violence spilling across the border, so I want to take this opportunity to make it clear the United States is committed to the security of Jordan, which is backed by our strong alliance. As has been mentioned, during this crisis, the Jordanian people have displayed extraordinary generosity, but the strains of so many refugees inevitably is showing. Every day, Jordanians are extending a hand of support to neighbors far from home, but this is a heavy burden, and the international community needs to step up to make sure that they are helping to shoulder this burden.
سعادة السفير، استكمالا لما تحدثت به عن زيارة جلالة الملك للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية في الأيام القادمة، جلالة الملك يحمل قضايا أخرى غير العلاقات الثنائية، لديه أجوبة، وأيضا يسأل الولايات المتحدة حول مسائل تتعلق بنشاط إيران النووي، لأن له موقف ضد الحرب ضد إيران، وهي مسألة ليست محسومة في الولايات المتحدة. أيضا يحمل تساؤل البحرين عن الضغوط التي تواجهها نتاج التدخل الخارجي، أيضا عن عملية السلام. يعني هل الولايات المتحدة تنظر إليه يعني ملك يحمل مثل هذه القضايا بنوع من الأريحية واستعداد للإجابة على كل هذه الأسئلة؟
Oh, absolutely. You know, one of the things that I've seen during my year and a half here in Amman is that we get a constant stream of visitors from the administration, from the Pentagon, from the State Department, from other government agencies, and also from Congress. And many of these visitors seek and are granted meetings with His Majesty, and they are very interested, and in fact they seek out his views on all these issues. You know, His Majesty has really become the person who people in Washington want to talk to better understand what is going on in this region, and he's become somebody that they, because of the close partnership, it's a very open and frank exchange about how we can work together to address some of these regional problems.
امتدادا لهذا، يعني نحن نعيش في العالم العربي تغيرات سريعة. أنتم في الإدارة الأمريكية تفهمتم الربيع العربي وباركتم كثيرا من الخطى. هل ما زلتم تدعمون دول الربيع العربي، حتى الدول التي وصل الإسلاميون فيها إلى السلطة؟ هل ما زلتم تؤيدون الإخوان المسلمون أو التيارات الإسلامية رغم وجود ردود فعل عليها كما في مصر أو في ليبيا؟ يعني هل ما زلتم على نفس موقفكم تؤيدون هذه الحركات؟
Well, the issue is for us, I mean, yes, the answer is yes. The United States is willing to work with any countries who are willing to work with us and who are willing to commit themselves to a democratic path and respect human rights and respect their international obligations. So the United States is not going to pick favorites. We're not going to involve ourselves in individual political parties in various countries, but we want to work with governments that represent the consensus of their publics and who respect human rights, including women's rights, and who respect their international obligations. And on that basis, we're willing to more than cooperate. We're willing to partner, and we're willing to provide assistance and work in ways that those countries want to work in.
ألا تخشون المد الإسلامي؟ أنتم تتحفظون على بعض الفصائل في سوريا كثيرا وتشيرون إلى أن بعضها تمارس الإرهاب. كيف تميزون بين هذا التيار وذاك؟
So the United States is willing to work with any party or any government that is respects democracy, respects human rights, respects women's rights, and respects the democratic process. So it doesn't make any difference if it's an Islamist party or if it's not an Islamist party. That's our criterion. Those are the partners we want to work with.
سأسألك عن قول الرئيس أنه استقبل شباب أردنيين في البيت الأبيض، ويعني أنتم مهتمون بأن تبنوا علاقات مع الشباب بالمدارس والجامعات كقيادات رائدة، يعني هذا تكريم كبير لهم أن يستقبلوا في البيت الأبيض، يعني وأن يشار إلى ذلك في مؤتمره الصحفي الذي عقده في عمان. يعني هل هذا شكل من أشكال تنمية قيادات أو يعني إشاعة سياسة الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية لدى الجيل القادم؟
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I noticed about the president during his visit is that he's very, very interested in young people. I think he really sees the world both as a leader but also through the eyes of a parent. If you listen to his speech in Jerusalem, he broke away from the text at one point and talked about the young Palestinian students that he'd met. And he talked about how any parent would like to see those young people succeed. And when he was here, he talked about the Syrian refugees, and he said the same thing. He said, you know, we need, as a parent, we have a responsibility to making sure that the children of these refugees are taken care of. And when he was here, and when I had some private time with him, what he wanted to talk about was our children, his children and my children. So he's very interested in youth. From a strategic standpoint, of course, the United States wants to have partnership with youth in Jordan and youth in the Arab world because this is the largest demographic. I think it's very important for us as an embassy to communicate with the young people of Jordan so that they understand U.S. policies, and also it's very important for us to understand what they're thinking about. So I think I mentioned earlier, you know, I've traveled all over Jordan and I've talked to a lot of youth groups and I've asked them what's on their minds. And invariably what they talk about is their interest in, you know, good education and good jobs. And that's a very important part of our assistance programs. We also continue to have exchange programs that provide tremendous opportunities for young people. One of the programs I'm most excited about is actually not an exchange program that works right here in Jordan. We have more than, we provide more than 1,000 scholarships for English language training here in Jordan. We call it the Access Micro Scholarship Program. And I had the honor to present certificates to some of the students last year. And they were just these young people were on fire with what they were learning because it's an English language program, but it also teaches culture and it also teaches community service. So they were very excited. We also have many, of course, programs that take young people to the United States, exchange programs. We have a program we call Tech Girls, where we take young women from high school who have excelled in engineering and sciences, and we give them a chance to study for 8 weeks in the summertime with girls from all over the world in the sciences and the technology, and expose them to U.S. opportunities. These young women are incredibly talented. Some of them were designing apps already at the age of 17. So these are the sorts of things that we want to be involved in. We'll continue to look for opportunities to have exchanges with Jordanians. We think it's a great way for us to get to know the Jordanians better and for them to get to know us better. Sorry, Sultan, but let me add one more point. You know, one of the other really interesting phenomena about exchange between our two countries is that now there are a huge number of students in America who want to study Arabic, college students. And many
هم
of them
يدرسوا، يأتي طلاب من الولايات المتحدة يدرسوا أيضا في الجامعات الأردنية العربية لغير الناطقين بها ويتدربوا أيضا على مسائل كثيرة. دعني سعادة سفير لا أثقل عليك أسألك سؤال آخر حول منطقة العقبة الاقتصادية الخاصة التي بدأت قبل حوالي 10 سنوات، وأنتم كنتم مهتمون بهذه التجربة ولكم ربما شراكات واستثمارات فيها. كيف تنظر الآن إلى منطقة العقبة الاقتصادية؟ هل زرتها مثلا؟ هل ناقشت أحد هناك؟
Yes, yes, thank you. I had the honor to go down to Aqaba a few weeks ago with some of my embassy team, and we met with His Excellency Kamal Muhadin, and we talked about areas for cooperation between the embassy and ACISA. Of course, Aqaba plays such an essential role in the Jordanian economy because of its port facilities and now because of its growing tourism facilities. So when we were down there, Kamal and I met with business people, we met with CISA officials, we talked, we also visited a school. You know, USAID has built a girls' school down in Aqaba, and when I visited that school actually over a year ago, it was one of the best days of my time here in Jordan because of the excitement around the new school that we've been able to build. So yes, the United States wants to be, through our programs at the embassy, we want to be involved in supporting initiatives in Aqaba. As you know, developing Aqaba is a part of the vision, part of His Majesty King Abdullah's vision for economic growth in Jordan, and we agree that it's going to play a very important role, so we want to be part of it.
سعادة السفير، هل رافقت الرئيس أوباما في زيارته للبتراء مثلا؟ كنت معه في هذه الزيارة؟ وإن كنت معه يعني ما هو انطباعه عن هذه الزيارة؟ هل سمعت انطباعه عن هذه الزيارة للبتراء واحتفائه بها وذكرها على أنها من عجائب الدنيا؟ هل هناك يعني انطباع أنت سمعته خاص عنها أو عن ضرورات أن يعمل شيء إضافي من أجل هذه المدينة؟
Yes, you know, I had the honor of accompanying the President to Petra on the day that he went down there. And as you know, it was the end of his trip. So he'd already been to Israel, he'd been to the West Bank, he'd had his formal meetings already here in Amman. And then the next day he went down to Petra. So he was at the end of the trip, he was very relaxed. He really wanted to go to Petra. He had asked to go to Petra. And so we arranged the visit. And he had a really wonderful time. He enjoyed the tour. He really enjoyed hearing about the history of Petra. But more than that, he was just so impressed with the site itself and the way that it's been developed by the Jordanian commission down there. And he talked a lot about how well it has been preserved. He's very proud, of course, of the role that USAID has played in Aqaba and Petra, because we've done a lot to create a good touristic environment down there. And he was, when we sat at lunch, he was very interested not only in the history of Petra, but in the history of the region, you know, the history of southern Jordan and how and the role of the Arab army and other things. So he was in a very expansive mood. It was really a pleasure to witness Petra through his eyes. So I predict, this is not official, but I predict that at some point he will want to bring the family back. You know, Petra is such an incredible national treasure for Jordan, and the United States is very proud to participate in supporting it, because I think it's a tremendous asset, not just as a touristic site, but as a national monument.
آخر شيء يعني سؤال قد يكون شخصيا، يعني كيف تمضي أوقاتك في غير العمل في الأردن؟ ما انطباعك بالمقارنة بين القاهرة وبغداد؟ أقمت هناك، ماذا يعني كيف تنظر إلى الأردنيين؟ هل لديك هوايات أنت تمارسها مثلا؟ أشياء تسعدك أكثر من غيرها؟ هل تواجه مشاكل في تكيف مثلا والتعامل؟ ما الذي يزعجك؟
No, I have to say I've really enjoyed living in Jordan. My family has really enjoyed living in Jordan. We're looking forward to staying. I'm looking forward to having my older children come back this summer, and so that we can enjoy outdoors Jordan. We've done a lot of hiking throughout the country. Just last weekend, the Canadian ambassador and I and his family and my family, we hiked around Irbid through a beautiful valley near Wadi Arab, and then we ended up at the Kais, which is a magnificent view, and we had a great, we had a wonderful Jordanian lunch. This is a perfect day for the Jones family, let me tell you. Being able to hike all day, beautiful sunshine, then end the day with a nice Jordanian lunch, that's a perfect weekend day for us.
شكرا سعادة السفير. مشاهدي الكرام، باسمكم أشكر سعادة السفير الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية في الأردن السيد ستيوارد جونز على مشاركته في برنامج حوار مع كبار. أشكرك سعادة السفير.
Thank you
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much.